Well, good evening and welcome to Prevent Truth Decay. I'm Barbara Hochstead. I'm the co-president of the League of Women Voters of Roselle-Bloomingdale, and I'd like to introduce the members of our board who are with us here tonight, starting with Susan Del Porto. She's our vice president. Laura Bennett, she's our advocacy director. She's in the back. Sue Coleman is the treasurer. There she is. Marianne Lill-Cluse is our membership director. She's in the back. She'll check you in. Mike Murray, community outreach. There's Mike. Everybody knows Mike. Jill Saggy is our secretary. And Shafali Trivedi is our events and fundraising director, but she is not here. She'll be here in a little bit. Am I missing anybody? Did I miss anybody? So one of the troubling threats to free and fair elections is mis and disinformation, the reason we're all here tonight, because it's a significant threat to informed decision-making by voters. Tonight, we will learn how mis and disinformation undermines trust in legitimate information sources, increases the polarization in our society, and erodes our democratic processes. It's my honor to introduce Donna Limper. Donna currently serves as the Money in Politics and Ethics Specialist, and she chairs the Response and Reporting Committee of the Mis and Disinformation Task Force for the League of Women Voters of Illinois. Donna has an undergraduate degree in business administration from the University of Illinois and a master's of management from Northwestern's J.L. Kellogg Graduate School of Management. She also holds a second master's of arts in education from National Louis University. Professionally, Donna has worked in financial research and public relations, nonprofit fundraising, and education. In December of 2019, Donna accepted a Citizen Initiative Award from the Citizen Advocacy Center for her work advocating for improved ethics for the DuPage County elected officials. In short, Donna has been working for the people of DuPage and our state for a very long time. Please join me in welcoming Donna Limper.
Hello, welcome to Prevent Truth Decay, combating mis and disinformation. The League of Women Voters of Illinois recognized that the proliferation and dissemination of mis and disinformation has emerged as a significant threat to American democracy, social cohesion, and individual decision-making. The tools for spreading mis and disinformation are becoming more sophisticated, allowing disinformation to be manufactured and spread at a speed and scale that is unprecedented. In response, the League created a task force dedicated to countering these threats. The task force hopes to create public awareness of the problem, minimize the impact of false information through education, and promote trust in our elections and in our democracy. So what is mis and disinformation? Misinformation is inaccurate information that is inadvertently shared without the intent to deceive. Where disinformation is inaccurate information that is intentionally created and spread with the intent to either obscure the truth or influence public opinion or both. We're all susceptible to mis and disinformation. As you can see, every age group gets news from social media where mis and disinformation flourish. However, youth aged 18 to 29 are particularly vulnerable. Take a look at the red arrow. 83% of that group rely on digital devices to get their information. When news started migrating to social media, it accelerated some of the changes that were already underway in the journalism industry. I'm going to give you a bit of history. In 1940, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, introduced the Fairness Doctrine. The Fairness Doctrine was a policy that required holders of broadcast licenses to do two things. First, they had to present controversial issues of public importance. And the second thing they had to do was they had to do so in a way that fairly reflected differing viewpoints, so you could decide for yourself. In the 50s and 60s, TV news in particular was viewed by broadcasters as a public service. In the 80s, however, entertainment conglomerates began buying up all of these networks and started expecting news networks to turn profits like their other entertainment divisions. In 1987, the FCC abolished the Fairness Doctrine. Soon came the 24-hour news cycle and the emphasis on attention-grabbing stories to raise viewerships and profits. Then came the emphasis on pundits, which were journalist-esque figures designed to deliver opinions, but not always facts. With the shift to social media, these dynamics intensified. Now anyone can be a journalist and anyone can supply social media feeds with hundreds of 24-hour posts, and content is near endless. The more outlandish a story, the better it does. The more outlandish, the more clicks, the more spread. When sensationalized news and opinion becomes more extreme, more of what we see online is classified as disinformation, content that intentionally gets the facts wrong. Algorithms target disinformation to communities based on two things: demographics or geography. The most vulnerable voters targeted by disinformation tend to live in areas that have little to no access to local news, what we call a news desert. And efforts to combat disinformation have been challenged by legal and political pressures as censorship and denial of free speech. In 2022, the Disinformation Governance Board, which was a division of Homeland Security, was disbanded, and we'll talk more about this later. So mis and disinformation can take various forms, from satire to fabricated content, and we'll go over each type so you can recognize it. Okay. The first type is satire or parody. Satire sites try to arouse the reader's disapproval of a topic by holding it up to ridicule. They use humor, irony, or exaggeration to expose and criticize. The headlines are meant to be outrageous. Parody sites imitate the style of another work or site, but both satire and parody exaggerate the news for comedic effect. So The Onion, on the left there, is a left-leaning comedy website that publishes false news stories about politics and other topics. And here's one of their posts. Supreme Court justices can barely hear oral arguments over upstairs neighbors' loud music. So it's funny. Okay, on the other side, on the right, the Babylon Bee is a conservative Christian news satire website, and the Bee posted this story: new NFL rules require opposing teams to just hug it out. Okay, also funny. None of the stories posted on these sites are meant to be true, but they can be misinterpreted as fact. And the real harm here is that they tend to solidify political opinions with shallow, humorous content, instead of nuanced information that the league, as people who try to promote citizen engagement, wants. So, imposter content is created when imposter sites impersonate genuine sources, like established news agencies. Imposter sites take advantage of the trust and reputation of established news agencies. You want to note the subtle differences between the authentic content on the left and the imposter content on the right. The logos and typeface, they're similar, but a little bit different. And the appearance of the imposter content is kind of clumsy and a little bit blurry. Manipulated content is created when genuine information or imagery is manipulated to deceive. The social media post on the right supposedly shows Senator Amy Klobuchar and Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison at a meeting with defund the police signs, but the image is doctored. The original photo doesn't show anyone holding any signs of any kind, and Amy Klobuchar was not even there, so you can see
the red circle here. There's Amy Klobuchar, but in the original photo, she's not there.
Misleading or manipulated content is also created when information is used to frame an issue or an individual with a distortion of reality. So the top image of a political rally would be used to showcase enthusiasm. And the bottom image of the very same image would be used to depict a campaign in trouble. Fabricated content is completely false content. This map was actually published in January 2017 to illustrate a story about political divisions in the US with red and blue voting statistics. However, it became part of fabricated content. The image was copied and reposted out of context as a map denoting gun violence with completely made-up statistics. So it became 97% of all guns are in the red territory, 97% of all gun violence is in blue. False news sites consist of totally fabricated content meant to deceive and do harm. The headlines appeal to our emotions and we're particularly susceptible to fear and curiosity. They use excessive capitalization, exclamation marks, and when you look closely, there is no byline. These websites create flashy headlines that draw attention, and the creators hope that the reader will take the headline as fact and share the story without reading it. Sharing without reading can make stories look like they're gaining popularity or trending, and trending stories make it more likely that they will be shared. False connection posts are created when headlines, visuals, or captions don't support the content. For example, in February 2022, multiple posts on X, which was formerly Twitter, falsely stated, Executive Order 9066 is rewarding these illegals with $5,000 gift cards. But the truth is, no one who enters the U.S. illegally receives gift cards, $5,000 or otherwise, from the federal government. In May 2024, the Director of National Intelligence told Congress that elections face increasing threats from foreign actors. Director Haynes commented, Russia remains the most active foreign threat. It has a vast multimedia network, including online trolls. Russia's intent is to erode American citizens' trust in democracy, exacerbate our very real social and political divisions, and of course reduce Western support for Ukraine. China, Iran, and others also tried to sway American voters to shape their own country's interests. In 2023, Meta, which is the Facebook parent, took down 5 Chinese Facebook accounts, more than any other foreign power. Rapid advancements in artificial intelligence can produce realistic deep fakes on a larger scale that are more difficult to source. At the same time, trust in American institutions is low, and so the question is, who is in charge of deciding if content is disinformation? So we had some Supreme Court cases related to this topic that I wanted to share, one of which was decided actually today, so I had to quickly change my slide. Federal efforts to address online disinformation faced a free speech challenge in the Supreme Court case Murthy versus Missouri. So this case was just decided today in a 6-3 vote. The plaintiffs, who were the states of Missouri and Louisiana, plus 5 individuals, claimed federal government contact with social media companies censored conservative voices in violation of free speech. The government countered, saying that it had only made requests, not demands, that social media operators remove misinformation. The Supreme Court ended up reversing the injunction against the government contacting social media companies and remanded the case back to the Fifth Circuit Court for lack of standing. So at this time, the federal government can continue to contact social media sites to address misinformation. Another Supreme Court case, well actually there's a couple that they treat kind of as one, is this Moody versus NetChoice and NetChoice versus Paxton. And these concern state statutes passed in Florida and Texas respectively, meant to restrict the power of social media companies from curbing of any objectionable content. And those cases are still being decided. However, I've been trying to read up, kind of see like where people think this is going, having listened to a lot of the oral arguments, and there's been just a vast array of amicus briefs across the political spectrum on this. So people that watch the Supreme Court, I'm going to tell you not what's going to happen, but just kind of what the current thinking is about what might happen. So don't take this as like fact, okay? However, Supreme Court observers believe a majority of the, remember this last one was decided 6-3, so it was not a unanimous decision. So they believe that a majority of the justices will not uphold the state statutes as they are likely to violate the First Amendment and would be inconsistent in application across all social media sites. So they were arguing, well, we can't restrict like Facebook and Instagram and X, and not do Etsy. So the Supreme Court was like, there's this vast number of sites, and we can't do something so very broad like that. So anyway, that's where they think this is going, but we don't know until it's decided. Excuse me. So it is likely that social media companies will be able to continue to address misinformation. So with all this being, again, so controversial and free speech oriented and who decides, the question is, how do we as citizens, as our own citizens, address mis and disinformation? In 2016, researchers at Columbia University and the French National Institute, they examined 2.8 million online news articles shared by Twitter users. According to computer records, 6 in 10 shared the articles without reading them. Lots of sharing spreads this fabricated content. And then in 2023, a more recent study, the University of Southern California found that the reward systems of these social media platforms cause frequent users to forward 6 times more mis and disinformation than occasional or new users. Attention-grabbing posts are rewarded with likes, comments, shares, reshares, and since frequent users care more about likes and attention than about the content they share, the study found that just 15% of the most habitual news sharers spread about 30 to 40% of false news. Artificial intelligence is the biggest mis and disinformation threat in the upcoming election. AI will increase our skepticism and create confusion about what it is we're seeing and what it is we're hearing. Let's see if you can spot AI. One picture of the butterfly is a photograph, and the other is AI generated. Raise your left hand if you think it's the one on the left. Raise your right hand if you think it's the one on the right. You think it's which is okay. Okay, so we do not have consensus. Okay, so here it is. The butterfly on the right is AI generated. Okay. So that could have been a fluke. Let's try again. Get another chance to pass. Okay. So once again, raise your left hand if you think the picture on the left is generated by AI, and raise your right hand if you think the right picture is AI.
Same picture. It's the same picture.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't pass. Sorry. Sorry. Okay. Do it this time. So left hand if you think the left is generated by AI, and right if you think the right. Okay, so once again, see some left, some right. Okay, the Statue of Liberty on the right was generated by AI. So early on, deepfake technology often left telltale signs of manipulation. So human hands had like too many fingers, like 6. Or they did not appear to be actually holding an item. It would be like a Barbie hand with a little cup like that over here. Or there were flaws in teeth, or jewelry, eyeglasses, fences, bicycles. Writing on street signs or billboards would sometimes be backwards or utterly nonsensical. And the background details might be blurry, the images might be kind of too glossy, plastic-looking faces, all this kind of thing. However, experts caution against relying on clues to spot AI images. So the thing is, the technology is very rapidly advancing. So unless you're trained in digital forensics, anybody digital forensics? No. It can be counterproductive to try to spot an AI image. More importantly, too much skepticism can backfire because this growing skepticism that we might have gives bad actors the opportunity to discredit real images and real videos. So instead of examining images like pixel by pixel to try and spot an AI image, experts recommend zooming out to use media literacy techniques. One model was created by digital literacy scientist Mike Caulfield, and it's called SIFT. SIFT has 4 steps. S stands for stop, slow down and consider what you're looking at, especially for pictures that trigger or play on your emotions. So if you're feeling fear or curiosity, that's like a red flag, okay? Second, the I stands for investigate the source. Is the source reliable, okay? F stands for find better coverage. Look for other coverage of the same topic. If it's an image or video of an event, let's say a politician speaking, are there other photos or videos from the same event? If there's only one, do you really think only one news outlet would cover that, event for a politician speaking? So that's a little suspect as well. And then T stands for trace the original content. Mr. Caulfield describes how to find out where an image originated and if it's been changed or taken out of context, like the one about the immigrants taken out of context, things like that, or the one about the gun violence, okay? So we're going to go to Mr. Caulfield, and he has just a very quick video on how to search your image history. Okay?
A lot of the information we encounter on a daily basis is visual. So a lot of the misinformation we encounter is also visual. Images are one example. Images can be manipulated, used deceptively. Often things that look real are photoshopped. Sometimes things that look photoshopped are real. In context, photos are miscaptioned and missummarized constantly. It's practically a web tradition. Now the good news is with a few simple steps, you can often find the photo in its original context and understand the meaning of the photo yourself. So let me show you some quick steps to do this. First, let's look at this photo. It went viral back in March. It's a dolphin and some fish swimming in the water, which might make a nice photo on its own, but it's accompanied by a pretty shocking claim. The water of Venice has become so clear from the coronavirus lockdown, this person claims at least, that the dolphins have returned to the canals for the first time in 60 years. Now, there's been lots of images and posts making similar claims. Maybe you've seen some of these. The phrase, nature is healing. And a lot of the images and claims are true, but is this one real or fake? Now, we could spend all day staring at this photo and trying to figure out if it's been photoshopped, but instead, I'm going to show you a quick trick that will help us figure out if, A, the photo is real, and B, if it's showing what it claims to show. And as you'll see in a moment, these are really two separate but equally important questions. Now, just like we did with text, we can search images in Google to get additional context. We just right-click on the image and select Search Google for Image. If you're using a mobile device, just press the image and hold and select Search Google for Image. Now, in this case, we get lucky, sort of, right? There's lots of stories here that seem to repeat this claim, but the most credible source on the page, National Geographic, a magazine and a society that looks at precisely these sorts of stories, seems to feature the photograph in a story that implies this is false. So we click on the article, we use our CTRL-F to quickly search for dolphin, and see if we can learn more about this image. In this case, we learn that the photos are real, but they weren't taken in Venice. Reading further, we can see that the reporter's already done the hard work for us. They've traced these images back to their source. Often when images go viral, we can count on professional journalists and fact checkers to do the work of establishing proper context for us, and that turns out to be the situation here. Once in a while, though, you'll have to do the work yourself. For example, here's a photo from an anti-lockdown protest showing protesters holding signs that say things like, defund science, defend my right to die. And again, we could spend hours debating whether this image was photoshopped and staring at the pixels, or we can do a quick search and see if we can learn more about the source of this image. For this example, we'll use a site called TinEye. TinEye works in every browser. It's a good alternative if you're not using Chrome. In this case, we can right-click the image, select Copy Image Address, and then we go to TinEye, we right-click on the toolbar, press Paste, and hit Return. Here we see a list of other places where this image has appeared. Now look at this. Snopes is already up at the top with an article from yesterday. This is actually new from last time I looked at it. But we could do this even if Snopes wasn't there yet. We see that NBC News, a reputable organization, has used the image recently, and we click into the NBC News link. It brings us to a story from April 20 about how Facebook has been removing events, and here's our photo right at the top with a caption giving us the original context. Protest, Colorado, April 19th. So the photo is from a protest, but notice that the content of the signs is not what was in the photo from the tweet. The photo in the tweet was photoshopped, but we figured that out by using some simple tricks to find the original source, not by doing pixel level analysis, not by looking for signs of manipulation.
So his name is Mike Caulfield. As I said, he's a digital literacy scientist that does these kinds of things. So in addition to SIFT, which is the acronym for his technique that he developed, there are multiple sites that will help you verify information. He already referred to one of them. The first one was Snopes, is a good fact-checking site, factcheck.org, Reuters, and also RumorGuard. All of those sites can help you fact-check things that, again, if they arouse your fear or your curiosity and you think, this is maybe a little sketchy or a little suspicious, let me check it out, any of these sites will work. When fact-checking for authenticity, learn to ask, was it posted or confirmed by a credible source? Is there evidence that proves the claim? Is the context accurate, or was it taken out of context, like that, the gun thing? Is it based on solid reasoning? So why do we share misinformation or disinformation? To answer that question, it's important to understand the way we process information in our brains. Our brains are wired to simplify the incredibly complex world around us. Bias is one of our mental shortcuts. We all have biases. A bias is a partiality that prevents the objective consideration of an issue or situation. This lack of objectivity can make us vulnerable to mis and disinformation. Our biases can be intentional or they can be unintentional and result in our choice to be for or against something. For example, fans of sports teams will often have a favorable view of their hometown teams, whether the team is winning or not. Once we form a first impression, it becomes extremely difficult to change our minds. Confirmation bias is our tendency, we all have this, to seek out and prefer information that supports our pre-existing beliefs. Confirmation bias is often unintentional, but can still lead to poor decision-making, and I want to emphasize this, tribal behavior. So part of our trouble right now, the reason Russia is targeting us too, they want to make our tribal behavior worse, right? So ignoring objective facts can lead you to miss important information that might align with your values and influence your voting decisions. So during an election season, for example, people will tend to seek out and pay attention to information about a candidate they prefer, and at the same time, they'll seek out and pay attention to negative information about the opposing candidate. Cognitive dissonance is that sort of uncomfortable feeling that happens when we encounter ideas or beliefs that conflict with our own. Just as confirmation bias urges us to accept information that conforms to our beliefs, cognitive dissonance encourages us to reject information that challenges our current beliefs. To put it visually, we avoid the unpleasant truth booth and we line up behind the comforting lies booth. Social media algorithms use your like and share data to decide what to show you next. The result is you're going to see more and more stories that support your current beliefs, which may be formed on false information. Social media algorithms, combined with confirmation bias, combined with cognitive dissonance, can result in our existing in a filter bubble where we kind of become intellectually isolated. The News Literacy Project is a nonpartisan educational organization focused on advancing news literacy throughout America. News literacy produces more informed, engaged, and empowered citizens, and ultimately a stronger democracy. Here are the project's 4 tips for staying informed in 2024. Be intentional about the news and information about the election. Seek out credible sources. Number 2, analyze misinformation using the SIFT technique that we talked about and fact check for authenticity. Number 3, reflect on the bias of news outlets and your own biases. Number 4, act as a trusted intermediary for your family, friends, and others. Talk to and educate people that you know on mis and disinformation, especially young people who rely on social media for news. If you do know someone, one of these habitual sharers, who is sharing mis and disinformation, you can talk to them privately about the content they're sharing, and if you are respectful and begin by trying to understand the person you're talking to, you have that opportunity to be heard in return. So listen attentively, ask questions. Where did they get their information? The object is not to convince others to think like you do. That is not the object. The object is to stop the spread of mis and disinformation. So in summary, each one of us has the power to stop mis and disinformation. First of all, it's critical for us to understand the urgent threat this represents to our democracy. Second, we want to reiterate, resist the urge to click on and share social media posts without first reading and verifying the information. This is a huge component of the spread of mis and disinformation. The League of Women Voters of Illinois, the News Literacy Project, and Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency are all resources for further information on the topic. Last, it's very important to report any mis and disinformation that you see. On Google, you can scroll to the bottom of the page and click on Send Feedback. On social media such as X or Facebook or Instagram, there are 3 dots or a little chevron in the upper right corner, and if you click on that, you'll get a pop-up box with reporting options. So you can report to them, I saw this and it's not right. Because the League can organize, localize pre-bunking and debunking responses in a timely manner, please be sure to report any mis and disinformation you see to the League of Women Voters website. I'm going to take us there now so you can see how to report it to us. We have 41 leagues in Illinois, and so depending on, remember I said this is targeted geographically, and so again, we can, sometimes it's very localized, like we might not get it up here, but they might get it in Champaign County or something like this. So anyway, so you can find it. I'm going to take us there to this website. There we go. Okay, hold on. Okay, so this is the League of Women Voters of Illinois website. If you go to the Issues and Advocacy tab, you'll see at the very bottom where it says Fight Mis and Disinformation. So that's the page I took us to, but this is just where to find it, okay? So now we're on the Mis and Disinformation Task Force page, okay? So it goes through how to spot mis and disinformation. It's a little bit of a synopsis of what we went over today, what you can do about it. So you see here where it says report it to us. See that? If you click on that, you will come to basically a Google form, a simple Google form, and it kind of gives you a little synopsis again of what to do. And you just put in your information. Where did you see? How frequently did you see it? What was the date? Please share the link if you have it. Where do you live? And that kind of thing. Okay. And then the other thing on the site is we have been engaging experts to give talks. I'm not an expert, I'm a league member presenting the information, but these people in these videos that we have had here, we have sponsored them speaking to us, like Mike Caulfield, hello, and recorded all of the presentations we have done so far. So all of these can also be found on the league website. You can view them at your leisure. How to talk to people who disagree with you politically, AI framework and introduction to media literacy, protecting democracy, how Illinois strives to ensure a secure election process. Some people worry about election security, so this is them talking about the steps they've taken. Remember, we were infiltrated by Russia in Illinois here, so steps they've taken to protect elections in Illinois. Misinformation and free speech, which is, again, this whole crux of what's going on at the Supreme Court. So all of that is there. Programs like this are available, at the click of a button, and there are more coming up. So if you watch your league, websites and the press releases, you will see what else is coming up, or you can go to this tab. Thank you so much for coming today. Democracy requires us as citizens to share our differences respectfully while putting greater emphasis on our commonalities. But most importantly, democracy requires factual, nuanced, and comprehensive information. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Donna. Let's give her another round of applause. And thank you to everyone for coming out tonight. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates or political parties. Empowering voters and defending democracy is our mission. So please consider becoming a member and help us continue our work to minimize the impact of false information to achieve a more informed and resilient society. Please feel free to stay and enjoy a drink and some treats in the back. Thank you again for coming, and good night.